All right, hello everyone. We are going live. I was running a bit late at work, so this might be a bit of a hectic start, but I'm super excited to talk today because we've got a bunch of great new cards and we've got a fantastic guest. So welcome, Sanjay.
Hello, I'm really happy to be here. I love being a guest.
You run a Twitch channel. I think are the uncontested duo, one half of the uncontested duos startup speedrun runner category, and
Yes.
and and all around just awesome netrunner person. Do you have any other accolades you want to throw in this introduction?
Oh, yeah, I'm the Ocarina Rules Manager. I recently joined the marketing team for Nisei, though that's not the capacity I'm here for. I've never gone to Worlds without getting top in my faction. 3 time Tenon, 1 time Sync. And
Wait, you learned the
I
top
am
Jinteki or the top ID
no,
top
no, no, no,
Tenon?
top Tenon, top Tenon,
Yeah.
top Tenon. No, no, of course not. I think two of those years it was by default.
Hey,
Um,
it counts. It counts.
it sure does. Yeah, I try and keep
Thanks.
as many Netrunner hats as I can so that I stumble whenever I'm in these situations.
Yeah, no, exactly, right? And the other nice thing is if you're doing a bunch of different things, you're always going to be the best in some way, shape, or form. Um,
Yeah, exactly.
Also, for those of you who didn't catch it, you did a fantastic stream on your Twitch channel, which I forget what your Twitch channel is called.
It's Miss. It's Mr. Cowbird. I did just upload it to YouTube, so if you want to
Oh yeah, if you want
watch
to
it
link that
a
to me,
little,
I'll throw that in the
yeah,
chat so
yeah,
that viewers can go watch that after they're done with this stream, of course.
yeah.
Um,
Because no disrespect to Jeff Bezos, and no respect intended to YouTube and Google, but it's really hard to watch VODs on Twitch. Like it's like ads
yeah,
every 10 seconds.
they make it quite difficult for some reason.
It's unwatchable.
They've decided that the way to do VODs is to just make them as painful as possible.
Yeah.
Um,
Um, highly endorse ad blockers for Twitch. Anyway,
yeah, yeah.
um,
I get no revenue from Twitch. Huge fan of if you guys are seeing ads on my Twitch channel, uh, feel free to block away. That's the link to Sanjay's YouTube video. And actually, before we go into spoilers proper, I do also have one card that has to come up, and it's going to take me a second to go and download. So we're going to vamp for just an extra minute or two, I guess. Have you been enjoying spoiler season so far, Sanjay?
oh, it has been so great. The range of different spoilers we've had, and the quality of different like ways, quality of spoilers have been so good. And that's just me talking about like the way in which the cards have been released. I've been very excited about the cards themselves as well. But just, I mean, even thinking about today specifically, we had like just incredibly elegantly and insightful and beautiful and insightful video made by Andre from the Metropole Grid. We had a pet fetch quest to unlock another card. We had some uh, oh nice. Um, we had some great stuff from our narrative designer or narrative Nisei narrative lead. We had another little puzzle hunt to figure out where the some spoilers were dropping, and we had a Dream Crush game, and we had your video that was also very good about Drago, Drago.
Yeah,
And that was all in one, and that was in one day. This
yeah,
is a relatively loaded day, but it's like really impressive. Yeah, Phil in the
yeah.
chat mentioning that Andre needs to tone down the production values. No, that's not true because that can be like his gimmick, like good production value.
I know.
And you just have to find.
I was listening to his video while at work, and I was like, if I look at this, I'm gonna feel bad about all of my production values. Uh,
It's so good.
I do want to look
Um,
at it and try and steal it, but I'm also like, you know what? I don't like try to remember. I don't need to be as good as Andre. I don't need to do the things the way that Andre does. There's a lot of room for us to do all sorts of different stuff. So,
Yeah, I think
um,
as a creator, you can look at other people excelling, and depending on like your own mental state, like where you're at emotionally, like you can either be like, I'm inspired by this, or I'm incredibly demoralized by this, and so like you just gotta like be in the right space to look at
yeah.
excellence. And Andre is so good at what he does. Um,
But as we're talking about stuff that are, people who are so good at what they do, I mean, this is just a work of like Nisei has been killing it with the art this entire set, but already I think I have found one of my favorite alt arts. Um, this is this is just a beautiful little joke, and a huge thank you to Zeroth Maxima Phil for coming through on my shit posting request. Um,
thing I really like about a virus is that when I first read Macrophage, which was spoiled a long time ago, I thought that's what it was referencing because my brain just like forgot what a macrophage is. So like I'm glad that um, viruses that eat other viruses are represented in the game because they're a really cool concept. Um, yeah.
yeah.
Anyway,
Uh,
not
all
important.
right.
Not important. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry.
Also,
That's the level of digression I'm going to try and avoid because we have a lot of spoilers to get through.
oh
Apologies.
no, I'm this. Look, this is. I mean, I we will vamp and compress time as needed. Also, Sanjay, unfortunately, and this is just for a little behind the scenes. I have stuff set up so that I can do smooth transitions by having two windows open in OBS, and Discord seems to randomly choose which window it's showing for. Um, and so it's showing you the window that's not actually on stream until I hit the transition. So sometimes it'll be a little bit ahead. But with that
No
said,
worries. No worries.
let's talk about the first numerical card spoiled, uh, which is of course Begamot. Um, this is a 5 cost 2 MU program icebreaker fractor. It is base strength of 2, though a bit of an asterisk on that. When you install this program, suffer 1 core damage. This program gets +1 strength for each core damage you have taken this game. Interface 1 credit, break any number of subroutines, and this is 4 influence. And I didn't speak, but he knew exactly what he wanted, and what I had to do is the flavor text.
Very pleased to see this card. I was a big fan of the Anarch Ice Morning or Anarch Icebreaker Morningstar.
Yeah.
The ability break any number of barrier subroutines is so satisfying to resolve. There's cards like Endless Eula in the game. Echo is a new barrier that could have like 10,000 um, 10,000 end the run subroutines. You get to break them for 1 credit. It's really cool. I think also, in the chat, I don't know about this, Phil, and Jeff. I don't know if you know about this, but
Yeah, yeah.
Phil was pointing out the lore of this card that I don't know a lot about. So if anybody knows about the book that this is from, wants to like talk about that in
Yeah,
chat, I think that'd be useful.
so I listened to the first maybe hour of an audiobook while going to the demo for PAX East, a demo Netrunner, and then like forgot and listened to podcasts for the rest of the time instead. Um, so I only, but in that segment, Begamot did show up, and from my understanding of that and some plot synopses and things, Begamot is like part of the premise of the mass. Oh shoot, it's the Master of Margarita or the Margarita. Oh my goodness, I feel so uncultured now. Um, the Master and Margarita was a Russian novel written by Nikolai Bukalov. Uh, Buk- no, Bukov. Um, and Begamot is part of the Devil's Retinue, and sort of like is a bit of a trickster character, um, but like walks around on his hind legs, like tries to like in his opening scene he tries to get on the bus paying a bus fare, and the bus driver like doesn't know what to do, so says no pets, and then so he gets kicked off the bus and then ends up like hanging on to the top of it or something while getting chased by the protagonist of that section of the novel. Um, so he's this. He's often in some famous scene. He's like swinging from a chandelier, shooting a gun, and is often seen drinking and stuff. So he's quite the character. He often has a bow tie, but I will say, as a secret scoop, we felt like that was too visually busy, and so omitted that detail from this character. Um,
What I really love about this art is that I didn't have that lore, and it makes me really happy. Um, it makes me really happy that like that's all in there, and I know that there's people who like recognize this and like, wow, cool, it's exciting that Begamot is in here. But also like, if you're not, it's like a tequila swigging cat or
yeah,
vodka probably. Vodka
yeah, probably
probably.
vodka,
It's
but yeah,
cyber vodka swinging cat. That's incredible. And I think that the brashness and the like in your faceness of this art and this character, it sounds like, match the like derangedness of like, you know, taking a core damage to install your breaker and just like powering yourself up by damaging yourself in the worst way possible, and then like just so that you can like say, forget paperclip, I am going to like utterly wreck some of your ice. Get out of here. It, it just is all very pretty and beautiful. I
yeah.
like this card a lot.
Yeah, and like we were chatting very briefly. Like this card's probably like this card is probably closer in power to Morningstar than it is to like Corroder or Paperclip. Um, but I would love to see like the Essa deck that's like, you know what? I'm gonna like play like Palongi and Begamot and like break all of your ice for 1 credit. And like I
Yeah.
could see a world where that looks kind of interesting. Um,
Yeah,
but
and also, there's the power level of a card, and then there's the power level of the card. And this
yeah,
card has got a power level off the charts.
yeah. Eric is saying he thinks that Essa will unironically play this, and I think that might be true. I have found in like the tiny bit of Jaden I've played that like playing Running Hot, the console, like actually gets you a good amount of core, but maybe you'll want a few extra, and like this is a really nice card for those sort of decks because it gives you a core damage while also actually advancing your board state, and then it gives you this ability to break barriers. And there's very few like honestly, I would suspect it as Essa most of the time you're gonna have a core damage before this card even comes down. So this is probably coming in at strength 4, and so it's breaking basically every relevant barrier in standard, just like within a couple of turns. And that starts to look kind of interesting.
Yeah. Another interesting thing about this card is that if there ever is a deck that just wants to wildly do as much core damage to yourself as humanly possible, programs are some of the most easy to like bounce and repeat and reinstall cards there are. So hopefully we're not in a situation where you're just simulchipping simulchip, trash your Begamot, reinstall Begamot, just to do core damage to yourself. But
Yeah.
it, it's notable that if you're interested in doing that, yeah, you rejig the Begamot.
Yeah. Oh, I just realized you can simulchip the Begamot on the corpse turn to get an extra like Essa trigger on their turn.
Oh,
Um,
perfect.
which is a fun little interaction. So
Yeah, just to remind the standard balance team to keep Salvage Vanitas Armory, like this is mentioning on the ban list.
yeah, yeah.
Cool.
All right. Well, because we do have a good chunk of cards to get through,
Yeah, yeah.
let's keep it moving, and we can always, if we find like we want to fill some time, we've got plenty of cards we can circle back and talk about. But next we're on to once again Andre's fantastic video. If you have not watched it, I would say close the stream and go watch it, but please don't close the stream. Just watch it immediately after this. He did a fantastic video covering the next 3 cards we're going to talk about. This is the first one. It's Carpe Diem, a one-cost criminal run event. It's 2 influence. It says identify your mark. So if you don't already have a mark, a random central becomes your mark. Then it says gain 4 credits. You may run your mark. And the flavor text is the best moment to listen is when others are listening to you.
One thing stands out to me about this card, just on an art standpoint, is that there's this. Andre pointed this out on his video, but like this art perfectly paints the picture that was in Sable's lore,
Mm-hmm.
of her just like playing virtuoso and like robbing people. And it was I actually I'm pretty new to the organization, so I don't know how they like did that nice coordination. It's really cool to see. I guess on the yeah. So that's nice. It's a beautiful card.
Mm-hmm.
It's a nice econ card. And I would say an easy way to get a mark. Like it's an easy mark.
Yeah, yeah.
I
If
would say.
you're it's really tricky to figure out where this like speaking from a competitive sense, like it's hard to figure out exactly like this is one of those cards where I think like you're gonna have to play it and then compare it to other econ cards you could have in this slot, um, and see like how it feels because its costs and benefits are so sort of we like just strange and intangible to compare to. It's like relevant other comparisons. I think um, the big one, of course,
Yeah.
is Dirty Laundry, um, where this and Dirty Laundry have a bunch of different upsides and downsides. Like this, you don't have to make the run. If you're Sable, this becomes clickless, so that's really exciting. Uh, but conversely, you have less control over where and when you can use this. It's an interesting little card.
Yeah. I'd be curious to know whether one of the downsides of Mark is that if you're playing anybody but Sable, you sometimes your first Mark card that you put down is not live the moment you put it down because you only identify marks at the beginning of your turn, except with Carpe Diem where you identify your mark as a part of the event. So if you have like so I wonder how relevant that is. It might not be that relevant, but it's kind
Yeah.
of interesting that you can like rush like I need wait I actually want to mark this turn not next turn. It's interesting that it's the one I think it's the one card we've seen so far, and I don't know if all the criminal cards have been spoiled. It's the one card that lets you get a mark before your next turn, which is
Y-
maybe impactful.
Yeah, that's actually a really good shout. If you are not in stable for some reason and have some mark cards, this is the I think the only way we've seen, and I also I'm fairly certain we've seen all the crim cards, but like I actually don't know off the top of my head. I'm just doing a very quick scan. No one mind me, just filling some air. Yeah, okay, so we have seen all the crim cards. So this is the only way we, at least in this set, we have to doing of making the mark happen not at the start of turn trigger. Um, which yeah, I think definitely could have some nice utility in some cases. And people are saying like, oh, like this is obviously you put in 3 laundry, 3 bravado, 3 carpe diem as the econ core in every stable deck. That just stealing a comment straight from TM Burton. Um,
Yeah.
and I think the challenge with that is you end up devoting so many slots to econ, and you have to actually win the game at some point. And like Carpe Diem starts being like, well, if I'm in an asset heavy meta, I'd probably rather have Dirty Laundry. If I'm just playing this as an easy mark a lot, maybe I should be playing Daily Cast. Maybe I can play all of those cards, but maybe you can't. And like this is, I think, just the you're gonna have to experiment and find which of these all of these different econ cards that are fine but not great, and figure out the right balance of those in your lists. I think, and that's the
Yeah.
boring. That's like the boring like, this card's not fun kind of take. But um,
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's like um well, I think one thing that's cool about that is that I think it's a weakness of newer deck builders that they put in too many cool tricks into their decks. I know I did this when I was a new deck builder. that you put in too many tricks and fun stuff in your deck. You don't put enough econ to make your deck work. And actually, just the more like econ cards that are in the card pool, the more a new player is going to not fall prey to that. Especially when you have a card like
Yeah.
this, where at a certain point, like okay, I have 3 Bravado, 3 Carpe Diem, 3 Laundry, 3 Sure Gamble. When is when is the next copy of that similar effect actually worse than a different kind of card in your deck?
Yeah.
And um, yeah,
Yeah, no, that's
it's
a great
interesting.
point. Like, and this is a way to for people that like are, oh, I want to play a Mark deck. Well, they're gonna put this in and have a smoother time. So yeah, it is. As D&D DMTB is saying, this is tricking newbies to putting econ into their deck, which is a great little trick, for the designers to pull, I think. And this is what I'm saying. Experimentally, I could be very wrong, and that Dirty Laundry 456 is really good, in Crim. So should we move on to the next
Yeah, let's
card?
yeah, let's move on.
All right. Next up, we've got Panweave. It is a 2 to install hardware cybernetic. It is unique. When you install this hardware, suffer 1 meat damage. The first time each turn you make a successful run on HQ, the corp loses 1 credit. If they do, gain 1 credit. And it's 4 influence, and the flavor text is skimming credits with the slightest touch.
Ooh.
Um,
Um, this card is. I think my first reaction to this card was fear, because I've been thrown in prison by very talented 419 players where I'm like, desperately clicking for credits, and they're like, oh, well, okay, cool. Well, first I'm gonna, Amina you, and then I'm gonna install something and drain a credit from you because I have a current that does that, and just like taking 10 years to claw your economy out of the toilet, out of the abyss, and then you have to deal with this like Almakua they have with 17 million
yeah.
viruses because they've just been running roughshod on you the whole game. Like I think I have the fear of this card like putting me just boom into the Shadow Realm.
Yeah,
Um,
and I will
that
actually say,
said,
like,
yeah,
yeah, this like sandbox being banned, I think is actually to some extent a direct buff to this card because that was like a huge
oh
thing
yeah,
where like, oh, I have to purge, but if I purge right now, I'm on 2 credits, so let me click for credits so that when I can purge and then res my ice, and in the meantime, like it's just this like long drag out kind of card. Um,
yeah.
but
But I will say that I think I sometimes like see cards from a court perspective. So like, oh man, what is this econ denial? I want my money. But this card is pretty sweet. Like as also somebody who loves to run a lot, because it's a little rebate. It The credit denial means that you can run elsewhere, um, nicely. I if I'm running all the time, I love this card.
yeah, and I mean, like this is saying like, oh, I probably do need to run into HQ like 3 or 4 times to make this card worth the install. But most games you're gonna run HQ a lot, especially as criminal. Um, Now, admittedly, it's the first time each turn, but it's still uh, we are those of us who know Lamprey do. This does make me miss Lamprey a little bit and kind of be like, but what if I could install 3 Panweaves instead of just the one? Um, but that'd be pretty wild, I think.
Yeah, I do really enjoy the like cat and mousey like criminal versus slightly strapped for econ corp, where you're getting into servers because you're just like leveraging that beautiful economic pressure on them so well. In the Andre video he also mentioned like, hey, maybe Reina can play this, and like that all made me really happy.
Yeah,
So like, despite the fact that like there's that fear, I'm excited, and I do expect this card is not going to be like as brutal as those like 419. I mean,
yeah.
you
I
know,
Yeah, I almost wonder if you could look at this in like almost the old like anti-sucker style lists where they're like just about getting that extra credit of value off of running central servers, and it's like you play Leech and you play like maybe you even go back to like importing stuff like Buzzsaw. So you're just like, I'm gonna
Ooh, yeah.
be hyper efficient at breaking all your stuff, um, and run around making your life just a little bit miserable and just like ping you for singles over and over and over again. Um, but
Yeah, or if you need a really efficient fractor, you can spend a lowly 4 influence and 1 core damage, and you can get through Echo super cheap.
yeah, yeah. Um, Yeah, it's interesting. I don't think this card. I think this card reads really strong, and then you're like, oh wait, I'm playing criminal. The corp is always putting 2 ice on HQ, or putting their best ice, most expensive ice on HQ. Does like this little 2 credit swing? Is that enough to make me want to make the run I maybe wouldn't otherwise make? I don't know. But
Yeah,
it's
that's true, and that's a really good point because the defenses you put into keeping Panweave from making your life absolutely miserable are defenses that you probably want to put in anyway,
yeah.
and that's
I
really relevant.
I will say, like, in startup, I think this is a huge shift. Because startup, I've often seen people not have to ice HQ very much, or at least not ice HQ early. And I think this card does change that calculus a little bit. Where now, even if you don't have agendas in your hand, there is some damage coming into you if you let the criminal get in too cheaply.
Yeah, I agree with that.
One other thing, because it someone said it and it hasn't left my mind. It's great to see 7 of 9 making their way into Netrunner, but that may be a reference for like only a couple of people here. So
Yeah, I mean, I like just hope this card doesn't take over the show and alienate other members of the cast. That's not a slight on Jerry Ryan. They just went on a weird direction with 7.
yeah, yeah,
Anyway,
no, agreed.
Jerry Ryan's
Um,
great.
yeah, no, Jerry Ryan did a great job, but the direction they did take the show was definitely a bit odd, and the at least we have a more reasonable outfit here too. Um, anyway,
Yeah.
moving moving on, we have the final card in criminal, and I'm pretty sure this is all of the criminal cards. We've got backstitching, a 2 cost virtual resource, um, which is when your turn begins, identify your mark. Whenever you encounter a piece of ice during a run on your mark, you may trash this resource to bypass that ice. And the flavor text is 1 step back. Oops, I am slightly too. My eyes are slightly going, apparently. 1 step back, take cover. 2 steps forward, repeat, then secure well. Um, so,
Um, First question in chat: stitching and embroidery fans, is that a spaceship or is it like an embroidery slash stitching thing? Get back to me. Um, yeah, what do you think of the mechanic? Oh,
it's
actually,
a.
another thing about the art. We got Adam S. Doyle, one
Yeah.
of who's absolutely fantastic. I love that we got some more Adam S. Doyle art in the set. That's very
Yeah.
exciting. Anyway, um,
Also, Anachron pointing out a shuttle could be both things, because a shuttle is a thing you do use in, which is kind of a brilliant pun. Um,
wow, that's good. That's really good.
that's great.
Probably.
This card's really strange to me. Um,
Yeah, it's
it's like
interest. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, you take the lead on this one.
So here's some things that stand out to me for this card. One, it's a bypass criminal effect for 2 influence, which is lower. Those are almost always at 3 for some reason. That's just like the traditional place you always put them, and so that's a little bit notable, especially if you're, um, a mini faction like Apex or just somebody else who wants a bypass effect.
Yeah, this
It's
this might be nice for our noodly boy.
Yeah, yeah. It's definitely more flexible than inside job and always have a backup plan. If you are the fact that you get to pick any ice on that server is really meaningful. because it doesn't have to be the first ice, it doesn't have to be the last ice, it doesn't have to be an ice that ended the run. That's really good.
Yeah.
It's a big limitation that one, if you don't have a mark already, it doesn't come down, and two, what the server it works on is just, it might not be the server you actually wanted to work on. Um, so I think this card's really interesting. It's fascinating that they have been able to make another bypass effect that feels so unique in it because bypass crim is like a little bit well trod territory, and this card feels like a different thing than what we've already had.
Yeah, it is. It is that. It's a weird, as you were saying in this chat, is saying like this is a bypass effect that like is different from every other bypass effect we've had, basically, which makes it a weird one to evaluate. Like Logic Bomb is what Andre called out in his video, and I think this has some similarities to Logic Bomb, while I think actually more or less being worse than Logic Bomb in almost every way. I guess technically you don't have to forfeit clicks, which is actually, especially if you're doing like a deep dive, a huge benefit. And this does seem like it's a card that more belongs in like APOC and deep dive decks to me, than because you can't, like, if you just play a 2 cost resource to either this turn or next turn get a single access or even a Docklands access, I don't feel like that comes ahead. You don't come out ahead that often in that exchange. Like you have to be doing a bunch of other stuff that's already good for that to be worth the card slot in a lot of senses. But if you are playing a deck that's like, oh, you know what? If I play this backstitching, I can skip having to find a breaker in certain situations, and that gets me a deep dive several turns earlier, or an APOC several turns earlier. Like this is like actually a fantastic APOC tool, to some, you know. Then maybe that's to me where I feel like it's gonna slip a little more easily. But
Yeah, I agree with that assessment.
yeah. All right, should we?
Yeah, do you want to move to the next
Yeah,
set?
let's
Or I
move.
guess let's move out of criminal, right? We're
Let's move
gonna.
out of criminal. We get to Sokka's spoilers. So
Yeah.
this is one of the just most striking arts, I think, in a set full of banger arts. Um, and this is Blood in the Water. It is an
Oh yeah.
X2, um, where X is equal to the number of cards in the runner's grip. And the flavor text: some tests require specific conditions.
This is
Um,
a very elegant card.
yeah,
I think a funny thing about this card is that I think there's a lot of exciting play implications of it, but like you just look at this card and you're like, wow, that's beautiful.
yeah.
Like it's the first X um advancement requirement agenda we've ever gotten, and it just like makes so much sense.
It really
Um,
does. This feels like one of those designs that's just been like implicitly hanging around for a long time, and it's like when someone puts it down on the page, you're like, oh wow, this is amazing. And like I know a lot of people have designed stuff like this in like custom card creation kind of stuff. Um, so
yeah. I guess we should also talk about the play implications of this. I think it's interesting insofar as there's a lot of different ways to be Jinteki, and as a Jinteki deck, you have a lot of different relationships to net damage, whether it's your main thing, whether you're trying to do it in big blasts, whether you're trying to do it in little pricks, whether it's just incidental because, hey, you got some good ice that does net damage. And it's interesting to think about how Blood in the Water will slot to each of those individual um, plans. For instance, if you're doing giant hits of net damage and you can rely on them, like you can all of a sudden use a card like Ronin as a fast advance enabler. Um, if like if they're on 3 cards and you have a Ronin on the table that's loaded up, I mean, this is maybe a little bit optimistic, but like you fire your Ronin, do 3 net damage, and then install 2 Blood in the Water and just score them for zero.
Yeah.
This is a little optimistic what I'm describing right here, but like it just the thing about this card is that it just recontextualizes what so many cards do. In the past, Ronin is like, or even Clearinghouse. Like, if you have a Clearinghouse for with 4 counters on it, that's really good anyway. But you can just spend your turn installing 2 Blood in the Waters and scoring them. That's incredible.
Yeah.
And especially in PE where and I think maybe I'm in like I think the thing one of my weaknesses of a player is I picture the best case scenario. I'm not like, oh well, you're not going to have the right things. But like I think what I picture like, oh, I'm in uh uh Jinteki PE where you get to do a net damage when you score an agenda. I'm just picturing like they have 1 card in hand because I did some other net damage. I have 2 Blood in the Water. Install advance, score Blood in the Water, score another Blood in the Water. You're dead. I have 4 points, which is probably not important because you're flatlined, but I
Yeah.
have them. Um, it's like it. I think the best picture of this is so exciting, and so interesting. I'm really excited about this card. In terms of like to see what people will do with it. I will say I'm also just like low key scared of Jinteki Grinder. I don't like TOing it. I'm happy for people to grind their opponents out, but just like we don't give them enough time in the tournament structure to do it, so it's awkward. I would never, I like to say that single-sided Swiss is actually a much more wholesome environment because Grinder can't take up, 65 minutes to not resolve a game. I don't know how you feel about single-sided Swiss, Jeff, but good
Yeah.
format.
It's a real mystery how what I think about it. I guess so. One thing I think that's interesting about this card is I don't think it's I mean, look, I will probably eat my words on this. It doesn't read to me, however, like a huge grinder enabler because grinder doesn't want a couple of things about this card. One of them is it doesn't actually want 2 points on a single card in PE because it means the runner can steal like 2 of these and an oboe, and that's all they need to do to steal the game. Or they can steal 2 1 pointers, this and an oboe, as opposed to having to steal like 4 or 5 agendas. Um, and the other thing is that when playing against Grinder, often runners are really meticulous about holding 5 cards in hand. Um, and this is a 5-2 with no other card text is kind of like you start to ask yourself why you're playing, and you're
Yeah.
already like when this card is good in Grinder, you're already kind of winning the game because they're out of cards in their hand. So I'm optimistically, I think this card works better in decks that are trying to like do a burst of net damage on a turn, using that to score Blood in the Water, and then resetting and like going for that a couple of times. Um,
Yeah, I agree with that. And it's definitely a thing where like maybe it entices Jinteki to like the best Jinteki deck is more proactive, and that would be really nice. And
yeah,
again, and I'm not trying to trash Grinder. I know other people are happy to trash Grinder. I think for me the only problem with it is just it takes a little too long. It's fine. It's cool. I like it. I really do, actually. I enjoy
yeah.
playing it. Every time my friends who are more competitive are like, "Oh, I need to practice for a tournament," I'm like, "Hey, like I don't play this myself because I'm a good person. But I would love to play some. I would love to have help you test the grinder matchup." Uh,
I'm gonna break one important Nisei playtester rule, which is to not
whoa,
show playtest arts. But I drew this playtester art, and it's my stream, and I will get banned from playtest if I do. But this was my version of Blood in the Water.
that's so good.
I don't think it quite holds up as well, but it was a lot of fun to make. So,
Wow, move over, Scadominga.
move over a
Um,
copyright infringement. Disney would, if we wanted to get canceled, we would put this on a card.
they just revealed that there was a Finding Dory reference or Finding Nemo reference in a Magic card, and they're not going to get in trouble. We'll get it. Wait,
That's true. That's true.
yeah. Anyway, yeah, they're the same. Yeah, it's the same picture.
It's the
Did
same
you change
picture.
it yet? I didn't notice. Um,
One of these days, we'll try and get a playtester alt arts pack, and I think it would be a lot of fun for people because I always enjoy those parts of playtest arts, and I
yeah,
just
my secret playtester scoop is that I didn't end up finding the time to playtest, but I did draw some playtester art.
yeah.
I think I actually drew the playtester art for Begamot,
I think yeah,
but
I would believe it.
it had a different name at the time, which is probably secret. So that's just
Yeah,
my little
I'm
scoop.
looking
Sorry,
through.
everybody.
Yeah, there's so many of these where I'm like, oh, we banned this card or reworked this card, or changed the name quite a bit. But all right, well, let's move on to the next
Yeah.
Jinteki card. Um, so next up, we've got Bladderwort. This is
Oh man.
a one
All right.
cost asset that's hostile subtype. Are there any other hostile subtypes? Are you
I
a subtype knower,
I
Sanjay?
like to consider myself a subtype knower. I don't know that because I love subtypes. I love how inconsistent they are in previous versions of the game. I love like wacky subtypes. I don't. I think hostile takeover it's or hostile infrastructure itself is hostile. Um,
So I just
I think.
actually, you
Oh,
know
it's
what?
not. I'm wrong. I'm wrong. I'm looking it up. Um, there's a
I
bunch
just
of
yeah,
them
I
before.
just pulled it up. So this is subtype hostile. It's clearinghouse, contract killer, dedicated response team, reversed accounts, Ronin, Sturgotic resonator, Tears hand, and urban renewal. Uh,
This is my jam. Look, what the heck does hostile mean? What do Tears Hand and Reverse the Counts have in common? Nothing. I mean
yeah,
things, but like nothing. I love this.
yeah.
Um,
It's
may,
like reversed accounts seems like it really doesn't belong in this list, and
yeah. Meanwhile, yeah. And
I'm gonna
people
have to
mentioning also.
and
Um,
hostile infrastructure also not a hostile asset, which is pretty amazing.
yeah, bioethics not. I mean, bioethics isn't hostile. It's just a bioethics seminar.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. I don't know what. I don't understand why people are so anti-ethics. Like, it's valuable. Um, incidentally, like, good on Moonbod Cycle for having such a hilarious like dark name on bioethics. Like, it's really good. Like, yeah. Oh, that's shame. It's very good Netrunner stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, hostile. Anyway, let's talk about the card.
Yeah, let's talk about the rest of the card. We got halfway through and then got completely sidetracked. Also, I will say, having before we get actually back on topic, I've been playing a little bit of Arkham, and it's amazing to see a game that uses subtypes and uses them consistently and usefully. And like, man, imagine that could have been us. That could have been us. But anyway,
Why
uh,
would you ever? The next when they print the second unorthodox card, I'm just gonna lose my mind. Love that stuff. Um, one
anyway,
other thing about before we get into mechanics, I do want to just mention bladderwort is a carnivorous plant. It's the bladder. It's named after the bladders that like catch prey in them. That rules carnivorous plants are great. There's a bunch of different bladderworts. What a great thing to call out on this card.
yeah, I think
Mostly
it's
animal guy, but
yeah.
plants, love it. Anyway,
I think Anzuke had a great tweet several actually like a month ago or 2 months ago about like the joys of translation of oh bladderwort. I'm sure they'll have a cool name in German, and the name in German translates to like water hose. Like it's just like it's not quite as
I
fun as you'd hope, but
appreciated that tweet. Though thinking about it, like it doesn't have a cool name in English. Like it's
yeah.
a- like what I mean. No disrespect to our urinary system. Like bladders are not sexy, and like I know there's a lot of different bladders, but like bladderwort, it's not cool, and it's a very cool plant. Um, anyway, I am fascinated by this card
Okay,
because I think.
before you
Oh
do a
yeah,
take, let me read out the
yeah.
text for those for the if there's anyone at
Oh,
home who's
I forgot we
an
didn't get to
audio
it.
only consumer. When your turn begins, gain 1 credit. Then, if you have 4 credits or less, do 1 net damage. 2 influence, 3 to trash Jinteki.
Yeah.
Uh,
Spray and seawater sucked in, all in the space of a millisecond. Um, so what is interesting to me about this card is I feel like it is probably at its best in an asset spam deck where you're able to like artificially like mess with your credit total a little bit so that you're like, oh, I'm gonna resolve Bladderwort first. I gain a credit and oh, I have so little money, and then I'm gonna resolve all these other things that give me money. Actually, I start the turn with 9 credits, but let's just pretend you don't. And I think if this doesn't do a lot of net damage, it's fine because um, it's 1 to res, gain 1. It immediately pays itself back for the money. Um, and it's not going to be the most high. It's probably not going to be the most high value asset that you have to trash.
yeah.
And so it might stick around for a bit. And so that's interesting because I feel like there's not a home right now for Jinteki asset spam. Um, they lost their probably most famous Jinteki asset spam enabler ID in Replicating Perfection and also in Industrial Genomics. Those were 2 really big like asset spam Jinteki decks. But you can do asset spam in other Jinteki IDs, and it's interesting where this card will fit in because I think there's a archetype that isn't seeing a lot of play right now that this could slide into.
Yeah, I think that's a great shout out. And like it's one of the things when I put this in my deck, I'm like, okay, like there's maybe a deck where I'm like, oh, okay, this is basically a cheaper like a pad campaign that pays back faster and has some extra upsides. And there's also going to be decks that are like, how can I like get that net damage every single time? I almost wonder if you could start looking at like a PE like fast advance list that's like, oh, I've got these bladderworts out, and sometimes it's going to be a Sand, or sometimes it's going to be a Vladisburst grid, so I can like play with my credit totals, so that I keep pinging you and like having you decide: do I need to go after the bladderwort? Do I need to go after the cards I put down, or like I don't know. That I do think the Epic wins calling out. I'm going to play asset spam outside of RP and IG. Runner and Salzmus Bones, Shells deck is potentially a way that that deck might go. But there could be some. I feel like there might be something here if you can find some ways to incorporate little pings and stuff.
Yeah, I don't think Bladderwort is gonna like get you there. Like I don't think like, oh, Bladderwort's here, like let me just play an IG deck without the IG ability. But like
Yeah.
if you can figure it out. And we're not gonna get into Jinteki ID this set. We're getting it this cycle in Parhelion, I think. Um,
Yeah.
uh, but but like it's nice to know, like it's always nice for there to be more than one thing Jinteki can do,
Yeah.
and I feel like this card, and actually even PE like will put a bunch of cards on the table. We actually haven't seen PE in a while, and PE is like a pretty annoying, like a pretty fun thing to do with PE is just put a bunch of cards on the table, and you're like, look, it's a lot of stuff for you to think about. And just you know, you don't have economy to keep the runner from checking all your stuff. You just have fear and annoyance, and
Yeah.
sometimes that works.
Yeah, and one thing
Um,
that's like immediately speaking out to me, the reason I put Mavirus up on the screen was like, oh, I could put a Bladderwort and a Mavirus in the same server, and like if I have too many credits, I can res the Mavirus to get the like as a sort of my extra Hakusai's, basically Hakusai grids 4, 5, and 6, um, and uh, and maybe that's something. I don't know. Maybe that's something.
yeah,
Uh,
and just a minor thing, like you know, sometimes people are like, "Why would I spend 3 to res a virus?" Like maybe because you're on 7 and it's funny, and they'll take a net damage. It's gonna be
yeah.
so hilarious for you and tilting for the runner when they have a really important card in hand, and you're on 12 credits or something, and
Yeah.
then you just like res a bunch of nonsense. Bladderwort, the key card they were most excited about. Yeah, yeah. That big win pointing out in chat. Yeah, you just keep on vamping yourself. What could go wrong?
Yeah, yeah.
This is brilliant.
Play every corp wins with 0 credits, right? Like we can play Russian NEH in the year of our Lord 2022. Um,
Also, like
But
this. Oh, I just thought of a cool combo with this card. You can play Nasix with this card, NASX. That
oh
lets you
yeah,
put all your
yeah.
credit. Yeah, just hide your credits on Nasix, and Bladderwort even lets you do that. Brilliant. This is brilliant. Amazing.
Uh,
Um,
Also, Jamie, just so because we missed the virus is courtesy of Zeroth Maxima, an absolutely beautiful piece of art. Um, and when I'm thinking about alt art sets, I want along with the playtester set, I do want the full Bass Hat set. So should we? Let's move on to the final Jinteki card. I think.
yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Not
Uh,
not final
or
Jinteki card at all, but final one we have today.
yes, I think. Do you have a Jinteki card later for us in the week? I seem to recall that
I
hearing
do. I
that through
do.
the
I'm excited about
grapevine.
it.
I'm
Yeah, show up
excited.
on Wednesday. We got trivia stream.
Ooh, very excited. All right, so we've got mitosis. Sanjay, do you want to tell us what mitosis is in the real world, and then we can assess if this matches it in game text?
Yeah, absolutely. It actually doesn't do too bad of a job. Mitosis is, of course, a name for the process by which one cell becomes two cells. It's a fundamental part of um, any multicellular organism like me, cats, bladderworts, um, to be alive, and dogs, and so it's basically you get cells that just copy all their DNA and split into two things.
Yeah,
And I think this. I mean, obviously, ideally, if you were going to perfectly represent mitosis, you would tear the card in half and then install both halves of it on the table. But there are, we can suspend our disbelief a little bit
yeah.
um, in order for
Uh,
this to happen.
Yeah, so I'll read out the card text now that everyone's been so patient listening to this fantastic biology lesson. And it's a mitosis is a 3 cost double Jinteki of operation. So it says as an additional cost to play this operation, spend a click. And it says install up to 2 cards from HQ, creating a new remote server each time. Place 2 advancement counters on each of those cards. You cannot score or res either of those cards this turn.
Yeah, one becomes many. Also, nice. And I think one of the things to do a little bit more lore talk. I think one of the things that I love about Jinteki is that they are the biology faction. They are the like, hey, we can do whatever we want with life faction. It's like to me the most evocative thing about their lore, and I love having be like, yeah, this is our mitosis card. Um, because I think it's also like part of you get taught it in um, middle school or high school bio, and so people might know about it. It's nice. Mechanically, I like it. It's wild.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest. I wasn't ever the biggest fan of Mushinoshin, but I know it was a card that like a lot of the player base loved, and I like for that reason I think it's like kind of worth this effect being in the game because it is a part of the game that a bunch of people like. Um, whether this
Yeah, I do.
card, yeah, it's
Yeah, I
it's
think the Mushin comparison is really relevant to thinking about Mushinoshin because Mushinoshin hasn't always been like uh, the most powerful card, but it is very. I mean, it does a lot, and I think it has done well in tournaments. And so when you have a card like this that is like even more like the thing that's incredible about this card is that it's like, oh, Mushinoshin is like a cool shell game, and Mitosis is like, actually, I'm gonna shell game even harder.
Yeah,
Um,
this is like the actual like Mushinoshin is not a shell game. It's like a put up or shut up kind of like it's call my bluff card, and this is almost more of a shell game card, which I think is kind of interesting. Um,
yeah. One thing I was thinking about this card that is interesting. Actually, one thing notable about the rules is that it says you cannot score or res either of those cards this turn. A lot of similar effects, like Saraswati or Mushinoshin will say you cannot score a res either of those, or you cannot score a res until the beginning of your next turn. So obviously you don't get a scoring window on the runner's turn, so you can't score the card until it's your turn, but you can res it. So
Yeah.
you can put an NGO down. It's not always the best because you have to put them in a new server. Maybe putting out a free um, BioVault isn't always what you want to do, but like you just I mean it would be you don't get to beta run, so that's a little less. So that part is a little less exciting. But just think from a pure economy standpoint. If you mitosis out two NGOs and then they run one, you're like pop it, gain 8. They run the other one, pop it, gain 8. You have a million credits. You can
Yeah.
you're 1 credit away from you can credit big deal next turn.
Yeah.
Um, you can res it on the runner's turn. You
Yeah.
totally can. You can't res it on
Yeah.
your turn. That's
Yeah.
what's weird about this card.
Yeah.
And it's subtle. It's subtle that difference because Mushinoshin you cannot res it on the runner's turn. You have to wait
Yeah.
until your turn. Yeah, isn't that weird? And I think that how good that is depends on the card. I do think with mitosis, sometimes you're gonna have a mitosis in hand and you're gonna look at your hand and be like, what two things do I want to do? You're going to have the perfect two things or good two things.
Yeah.
The thing with Mushinoshin is like you can probably find a thing in your hand that's funny to Mushinoshin, but um, it it's a little harder to find two good things. Though
Yeah.
another wild thing about this card I remember is
You can
that
do it with
this is
ice,
not
right?
you can do it with ice, yeah. um, which is wild, right? Uh, you can do this for the Mesnichesco. I don't know how much influence that is. Or you can import mitosis. You put out a Mausolus. That's incredible. Yeah, Mausolus P sounds gross, right? Nice
Yeah.
more often mentioned that in the chat. Like Mausolus is great in every faction it's in, and it has this like special joy in. I mean, actually, I don't know if HB cares about Mausolus, but like you put Mausolus in NBN, and then they're like, wow, a tag. You put Mausolus in. This is sorry, to the side. We're not talking about Mausolus. Great card, love it.
Yeah.
Mitosis,
Yeah. No.
but you can mitosis a Mausolus, and then there's two. You advance it another time later. Um,
And suddenly you've got like
you-
one of the craziest ice to face check against in the game. Um,
yeah.
yeah.
Um, oh yeah, actually, Infinite Nutshell mentioning like turn one, you can mitosis NGO and ice. Or you install an ice and then ice essential. Now you can't put them; they have to be in two separate servers. So
Yeah.
um, any card is off on its own unless you use the other click to protect it. But the card is so weirdly flexible that I'm really excited that it exists.
Yeah. I think
I'm
you
hoping, yeah,
Yeah. I think also the Trick of Light shout-out's really good. Like this might be a way for Jinteki to like build up some of that their Trick of Light batteries in sort of a click and time efficient manner. Like this is actually doing like 4 clicks worth of work. No, I'm sorry, it's 6 clicks worth of work for 2 clicks and 3 credits, which is pretty good. And that's not counting the. I'm not including the click cost of actually, or the credit cost of paying for the advancement counters, though that is also work. But like, if you're just comparing like the actions I need to take to install 2 cards and advance both of them 2 times each, like you're saving yourself like basically 2 whole turns of time for 2 clicks. Um, so
yeah.
it's quite something.
It
Um,
reminds me a little bit, and this is like a comparison to a card that didn't see a lot of play. It reminds me a lot of Replanting. That
mm,
is a Jinteki card that just like does a lot of shenanigans, and like this card also does. And Replanting just doesn't see play because it's not like powerful enough. Like it doesn't do enough, but it does so much. And like I'm very excited for Jinteki to have more cards like this. Yeah, like all this stuff Replanting does. It's so weird. What a cool card. And the
yeah, what a weird
open-endedness
card.
of mitosis is like really fascinating.
Yeah.
Um, maybe we'll never crack it. maybe like years later, well, Mitosis will see no play in the highest level tournaments, and then we'll give 2022 Netrunner to an AI to crack, and it'll be like, yeah, y'all should have been on Mitosis this whole time.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Um, let's talk about the final cards. We've actually now crested the hour of the two of us talking mark.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Um,
I've
oh
been
no, it's no
monologuing.
problem at all. I just was look. I'm. It's been a fantastic time, so I haven't minded at all. But this is the final card. This is I put out a video with Aaron this morning where we talked about the runner deck he played that actually won him this championship, and played I thought a super fun game against Argus. Huge shout outs also to Analyze Chris, who didn't get a direct shout out, but uh, it was great. He pitched in last second to play a really fun game. But we have a new card. This is zero cost Drago Ivanov, asset executive, um, with the text, you can advance this asset. And then two hosted advancement counters as a paid ability. Give the runner one tag. Use this ability only during your turn. Tell them Drago would like a word is the flavor text, and it is 4 influence and one cost to trash. Um,
Yeah. Um, Minor thing about it before we talk about it more extensively. I love that this is a champ card that actually had room for a little great piece of flavor text.
yeah,
It's very ominous. I love it. And usually they rob our champions from their flavor text. It's sad. Um, Play this with psychographics. That's funny.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I think this card has got me very excited. I think I'm a big NBN fan. I'm I was thinking about putting this in sync. Um, the fact that it doesn't go away when you do the ability is wild. You can just like do it again if they don't deal with it. Drago just gets to keep on hanging around, making you miserable.
Yeah.
Um, it's yeah,
It
and like
it's it's
uh,
it's such an I actually I really like D&D DMTB's pointing out like this feels like a threat by its like knowing that this card exists changes how you like it doesn't have to be in your opponent's deck, but you have to respect that it might be in a lot of cases. Um and it becomes really interesting in that sort of circumstance where this card does change how you think about advanced assets in some ways, which I think is super cool.
wow, Epic Win pointing out that if you get Drago up to four counters on it, you can just boom somebody.
Yeah, I'm gonna leak a tiny bit of secret playtesting tech here, and say notice the install cost on Drago, and then I'm going to encourage you to go look up the text of MCA austerity policy. Um, it's it's a neat little combo for the 32 of you watching live and the hopefully like 200 of you watching later. Um,
I will point out to not to be too much of a drag, but just to like put us, give us the reminders of the constraints we're working on. I think in just of the cards we've mentioned in the last minute and the things that have been mentioned in chat, we've probably mentioned like 20, like 30 influence worth of cards.
yes,
like
yes, yeah. If
like
you're
oh, I'm
doing
gonna
this,
mitosis.
yeah. Go ahead.
So that's fine. But it's actually exciting because this is like a really potent enabler. It's a really potent uh, threat, and if you're playing this out of faction, the surprise value is gonna be off the charts. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, no, it definitely
Gosh,
is, and
yeah.
it's like, oh, that's a 5/3. I can do with it. Like, I'll just give them a 5/3, and then all of a sudden, nope, it's Drago, and something happens to you. Um, so, um, that's maybe like that'll be an interesting thing to see occur. Um,
Actually, yeah. Talk me through the clicks. So if you pop an MCA and you get Drago,
yeah, let's put. I'm gonna grab MCA the image for MCA real quick,
yeah,
but
yeah.
um, just to pull it up on the screen. So while I'm doing that, um,
And
Uh,
this combo only works in Ob
I
because
believe.
you got to go get the free Drago with popping the MCA to save your clicks.
Yes, I believe
Um,
so. We can. So let's talk about this combo. And I maybe should have tried to win a tournament with this before saying anything, but I suspect people would be clever enough to figure this one out.
no, just say it out loud, let people build it for you, and then go crush it with your good playing.
Yeah, exactly, right? So, okay, it's the start of turn as Ope. Uh, we have 3 counters on MCA. We've got 3 clicks. We spend
Perfect.
our first click to trash MCA austerity policy. So we have 2 clicks. Uh, the trash trigger triggers our ID ability, so that goes and installs and reses Drago. We then gain our 4 clicks, so we have 6 clicks remaining.
Perfect.
We then advance Drago 4 times. We have 2 clicks left and 4 advancements on Drago. We give the runner 2 tags, and then we play Boom.
Boom. Shakalaka. That's great.
Now, we need 7 influence for 1 copy of each of these cards. So, you have to figure out what you're doing. I also don't know what happens when when the runner trashes your your one of Drago. Um, how you have to like reset your combo there. Um, and
I don't think it's unreasonable to think about a deck where you played 2 MCAs, 2 Dragos.
yeah.
That's
Oh,
14 influence.
yeah.
But Wayland decks aren't the Wayland decks of the past where they desperately needed influence just to have functional ice. Like they
Yeah,
can
that's
play
true.
beautiful. We've already gone crazy, wasting time talking about how great Monolith is. Like that. I mean, maybe that's not how you win, but it's pretty cool. You could spend 14 influence on that and maybe 1 spin doctor, and that deck might work.
Yeah, I'm also Anarcho Mushroom calling out every time I tried this deck in testing, I drew the fucking Drago. And that is the other thing, is like Drago has to be in your deck when you go to do this combo, which is sort of an interesting
Well,
combo
we've
piece.
been talking. Everybody's talking about how great Alexa Belsky is, and that's the solution to all your problems. You
Hey,
Alexa Belsky, put the Drago back.
how
Get a
much
Rashida
influence is
for free.
Alexa Belsky? I'm trying to
Just
remember.
two. Just two.
Just
Easy
2.
peasy. Yeah.
Easy P. Yeah, I mean, hey, we everyone's talking about how uh, you're gonna make a toolbox deck in Ob, and maybe Alexa is the tool you need to make this combo consistent. Um,
Absolutely.
Now the challenge is you're gonna put your boom away, and there's no consulting visit anymore.
No, no, no. They're
So
gonna pay 2 credits to try and hit your Drago, and they're gonna miss, and you're gonna
yes,
keep the
yes,
boom.
you're gonna keep the boom, but not the Drago. Yes, that's what's
Yeah,
gonna happen.
yeah, Drago. Sorry. Like, yeah.
That's beautiful.
Perfect. And then that two
Yeah.
credits keeps them from disrupting your play.
Oh, actually, the other option, of course, is that we get the Rashida, and the Rashida draws us the boom, and then we have to wait another turn because we've used up our Ope trigger. So, but that does get the Drago back in the deck, and like it's a one of, so there's no possible way we draw it a second time. Um,
I mean,
but
it's and I mean, this is just like us talking about Drago in the context of this one very
yeah,
potent combo. Um, it is a very versatile card. It can
yeah,
do a lot.
I think
It's
yeah,
exciting. Yeah,
it's got that like kind of breaking news kind of feel to me, where like this can do a ton of different things in all sorts of different decks. Um, and Philip, Ope is once per turn. It says it at the very bottom. It's actually one of my only peeves with the card is they didn't say whenever once per turn. Whenever you do something, it's whenever you do da 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 da. Once the uses ability only once per turn. Um, which is a little bit. I would love to see the version of this ID that triggered whenever you wanted to, and that'd be pretty wild. Uh, but but I do think also we don't need to just talk about this card in the context of we can also talk about it in the context of like the vertical yellow decks, or maybe we're gonna have a Protoss shell game deck, and this is like, you've got your ubiquitous Figs, your Chekka Scions, and now your Drago Ivanovs, and so the runner has to run, but maybe they shouldn't, or if they don't, now you have a punishment for it. Um,
Yeah,
which
and
is
even just like this card in the context of like doing a echo chamber impersonation with the card you spoiled. It's backroom.
yes,
No,
backroom
yeah,
machinations.
backroom machinations. Like that's really sweet. Just like you can just get a free point if you leave this on the table. Pretty nice.
Yeah, yeah,
And it sticks around, and it sticks around to cause more trouble later.
yeah.
The fact that this sticks around like is really blowing my mind, because it feels like an effect that would trash itself. Like I don't think it's like I'm not saying like, oh, this card is busted because it doesn't trash itself, but the fact that you get to like you don't always want to like you're shooting your shot and you're like, I did it, so maybe you don't always want it to stay around again, but like the fact that it does if you want is really cool. I like it a lot.
Yeah, it's super it's super fun to see this sort of card space being explored where like maybe this card's not going to break the meta right now, but every time a new tag card comes out, I'm going to look at this and go, can I do something with this now?
Yeah.
And I'm actually like, I think all of the champ cards do that, which I think is
Yeah.
super. It's so I'm so glad like I not dissing other champ cards, but I'm really glad all of the champ cards this cycle seem to hit that same high of like these maybe won't ever be meta defining, but they will always be at the very least a deck building consideration.
They remind me a lot of Chris Dyer's Border Control, where I don't know the design of that card, but like
Yeah.
in terms of how that card functions, like look, we Corpse needs some more stuff. They need some help. They need some more win conditions. Let me print one for you. Let me use up my world's win to help the game out as a solid to Corpse. You're welcome. And I feel like a lot of these cards feel similar, like where it's like um, this card, Mutually Assured Destruction, Triste, the Pencils
Yeah.
card. Like I mean, actually, all like just the champ cards, like are breathing such life and versatility. I mean, startup. Like you talked about this some on your stream yesterday. Like startup players, I think I am new startup player. Are very like it's very exciting. Like possibilities are through the roof. And in standard too, like and you can even combine them. You can big deal Drago if you want. Um, I don't recommend it, but you can. Um,
Yeah, I'm gonna big deal not score this card. Definitely don't run it though, so I can use the ability next turn to
or you can,
land two
or you can,
tags.
yeah, or you can mutually assured destruction to Drago and give them a tag.
Yeah, you spend all your Drago advancements. They like clear them with no free lunch, and you go, but I have one more trick up my sleeve, and blow it up
Ooh.
along with your entire board.
Love it. Yeah, I mean, I think, but yeah, I think the champ cards have been, and I think this has always been the case where the champ cards um, have been designed by players who are like very obviously very tuned to like competitive netrunner, and like getting these cards that have been designed or inspired by them is really lovely. Um, yeah,
Yeah,
I do want to mitosis a Drago. That does sound
yeah,
fun.
yeah. Like my Tosasing a Drago and a Check a Scion is just like a
Oh yeah,
like like I don't know if this is going to be a deck, but Mitosis Pravdivos does seem like something that I'm going to see. You're going to see a lot of on JNet at least for a little while.
yeah. I would say like don't take mitosis Pravdivos to the top level tournament expecting results, but I say do take mitosis Pravdivos to Worlds and just do shenanigans all day. You're gonna have a blast, um, and maybe you'll win.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
yeah,
hey, someone piloted Mushin Notion, clones are not people to like top 16 at the last Worlds, right? Like
yeah.
anything's
Well, a thing
possible.
I mean, a thing about that is that I think the secret tech of that deck was, hey, when you have an agenda that's like basically scored because you have a bunch of advancements on it and the runner doesn't want to take it, just leave it on the table. Because then the runner doesn't know how close they are to dying. And I think like changes in strategy, like we're not, yeah, we haven't seen the full power of mitosis.
Yeah. All right, Sanjay, it has been fantastic chatting with you, and I would love to keep chatting with you all night, but I should actually go eat my dinner and
Yes.
unwind a bit. And we should all look forward to your stream on Wednesday.
I think. Oh yeah. Did we miss two cards? We might have, but you can do them tomorrow.
Oh, which
I
two
we might have
cards?
we might have missed the shaper cards.
Oh,
Dig
we,
and testing.
let's, you know what? I can delay
Sorry, I'm
dinner a
not trying
few.
to. I'm not
No,
trying to
no,
keep you from dinner.
no. It's
Um,
I can delay it a few more, 2 more minutes because I love talking about cards. It's one of my favorite things in the
we
whole
did. We
world.
did Begam. Yeah, we did Begamot. Ghost Tongue. They talked about yesterday. Yeah, yeah. We did the Anarch
Yes.
card. It is sweet. Yeah, and it's another cat card. So if you care about those things,
Uh,
apologies to everyone who's having dinner with Jeff, who presumably they're not watching the stream, but if they are,
uh,
apologies. Um,
Probably not, but you never know. I will have these up in 2 seconds. Well, maybe
yeah.
not
So,
literally two,
um,
but
is there anything else I want to say in the meantime? Let's think.
what time do
Uh,
you think you're streaming on Wednesday? I
oh, good
ask
question. Good
totally not
question.
entirely selfishly.
Yeah. I'm streaming at 8 p.m. Which is
Fantastic.
Eastern Daylight Time. So, whatever. So about an hour and some change from now, but on Wednesday. So um, imagine whatever time you're at. Oh, it's Deg. Let's talk about that.
Yes.
Yeah, join me on Wednesday. Beautiful art. What do you think of this card?
So it is a one-cost resource
Oh yeah, we gotta
companion
read it.
virtual called Dave First Netcat. It says whenever an agenda is scored or stolen, you may charge one of your installed cards, and it is 2 influence. And the flavor text is that's him in the front. Then there's Scout, Jonesy, Parker, Buka, Squee, Boots. You get the idea. Um, this is a bunch of different playtesters' cats on the card, and Nisei members' cats on the card. So it's Cat did a fantastic job getting all these cats on a card. Um,
I
um,
think both the art is beautiful, but also just because of a pun, I'm happy that Cat did this art.
yes.
Um, I mean,
I
I'm
so
always happy that Cat does
Yeah,
any art, truthfully, because
for sure.
they're
They
just
they
they're just fantastic.
yeah they
Um,
can knock it out of the park. Um,
yeah. This card is interesting. I think it's interesting insofar as it's a charge enabler outside of Padma.
yep.
It's a charge enabler in Padma, which are both separately interesting. Um, it's hard to. It's. I mean, charge is very hard to evaluate because add a power counter to a card with a power counter um, can mean
It's
so many different
Yeah,
things.
it's so contextual. It's hard to figure out how powerful this ability is. And like I have to admit, my perception of this card is really colored by the type of decks I was playing in playtesting. So it's hard for me to separate that from what people are actually going to optimize more of. I think Anachron is calling it out. Earthrise probably is sort of the benchmark charge you're comparing it to, but it's like hard when you're like, oh, what if I only have one boat counter, a charge on that boat counter could be worth a ton of credits if that lets me break a I'm trying to think of an arbitrarily high strength ice like Suzano no Mikoto is not in the format, but right like
But it is really strong.
it is really strong, and that would cost me like 5-6 credits to break in some case. So that boat counter might be worth a ton, but also like putting my fourth like just refilling a or surveyors the informat example. Thank you everyone for reminding me that that's a card that I have to remember exists. Um, uh, Like putting like my third power counter on an Earthrise Hotel doesn't feel like it does a lot for me. Like if it's my like if I've only got one and I put another one on, I'm like, oh fantastic, I'm gonna get an extra two cards in 2 turns time. That's pretty good, but it's like, oh, is two extra cards in like 3 turns time that good, or 4 turns time that good, or is like my seventh boat counter that much better than some other card I could be playing? I don't know. Like uh, it's it's a very challenging card to evaluate on its text alone, I think. Um,
Yeah, I agree with that assessment. I think the fun thing about it is that it's price to move. You know, it's 1 credit, so like,
yeah,
it might not get there, but it's not asking too much of you, which is
yeah.
nice.
You,
Like,
you you can you can put this in your first draft of all of your charge decks, and you'll discover if you'd rather it was something else in testing, but it won't like cost you games by being there, kind of thing.
yeah, as compared to like say the Nihilist, where you're like, oh wow, I should not have spent 4 on that. You spend
Yeah,
1, it's fine. Get a cat.
yeah.
You deserve it. Yeah, you want to talk about the last card of the day? This was a loaded day.
Yeah.
I'm sorry you got like your like one of your most verbose guests on a day with lots and lots of cards. You
Oh,
were set up for
look,
failure in getting to dinner.
no worries. I mean, hey, we managed to talk for an hour about a single spoiler yesterday. So this is actually we are by the metric of cards per hour, we are flying through things. Um, but this is environmental testing. It is a 3 to install resource. Whenever you install a program or piece of hardware, place 1 power counter on this resource. When there are 4 or more hosted power counters, trash this resource and gain 9 credits. It is 2 resources, 2 influence in Shaper, and the flavor text is, "Why are we here? No one else is going to do independent testing. That's why." Padma Isbister.
We'll say that this flavor text is like maybe my favorite in the set. Just in terms of like making me like Padma so much. Like I think sometimes different. I like Padma's just like a cool, m- ethical scientist lady. Like she was already cool when we knew she had a boat, but like this is great. Anyway, um, mechanically, there's some good comparisons in the chat to Tech Writer, a card that also triggered off the same triggers. Um, Probably better than Tech Writer in the
I th-
sense that
yeah.
Tech. Well, actually, it's not
I
strictly better
actually
than Tech Writer by no means. But oh, go
I
ahead.
don't think it's strictly better, but I think it is actually functionally probably better. Um, it's got
I
some
was gonna say it's
downsides, but
yeah. I was gonna say it's better for your mental health because when you have Tech Writer, you're like, there's 12 credits. Take them. Like, if I don't, I'll get more. Where environmental testing is like, hey, good job, you did it. Here, have 9 credits. Um, it's interesting. Like, yesterday, me and my friend Ian were talking about it, and we were comparing it to Daily Cast, where obviously the downside of Daily Cast is that, or the upside downside of this card relative to Daily Cast is that Daily Cast gives you your money back guaranteed slowly. Like, if you install
yeah,
a Daily Cast turn 1, um, and you're on 5, next turn you're going to start on 4. If you install this when you're on 5, you're going to start on 2, and that's tricky. Um,
definitely.
yeah, Anacron pointing out that SMC is really nice with this self-modifying code. You just get to like boom, 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 boom. You could and the ability and that's where it shines next to Daily Cast, where you can like unload it immediately.
Yeah, I think that
Um,
the thing that gets me excited about this is I can install SMC and that like either 2 SMCs or an SMC and a simul chip, and immediately spend 2 clicks to get this full payout, provided I have enough
yeah,
money on the slot or on the
yeah.
spot.
If you overclock with this, you can play a run event that gives you 9 credits. Um,
Yeah,
Out of Shaper. That's a thing that previously we were calling stim hack, and you don't even need to take core damage for that. You just
yeah.
get 9 credits. It's amazing.
And the other thing is like this is non-unique. You can have 2 of these down, and like install SMC, and like suddenly that SMC is, instead of being worth like uh 2.25 credits, it's now worth 4.25 credits, and that starts to look quite appealing. Now, like the big downside, like Daily Cast, is this has upfront costs for money that you don't get. Um, but as people are calling out, Woo probably likes this. Like I think there's the Aesop's pawn shop sort of decks have been pretty quiet post Haley rotation, and I don't know that this card brings them back, but I do think that if Shaper gets, I think they're due one or two more programs. I know there's actually a bunch of cards missing, but if they get
Yeah, I
one
do
or
think
two, if they
I
get
had heard that if you show up on Wednesday at 8 p.m. on my stream, there might be a Shaper program
ooh, and
or
also
a
I think
hardware. Who
I,
knows?
I've also heard that Slumscast is gonna have a couple of Shaper cards as well, and so if we get
Cannot.
like,
So funny
uh,
they gave some.
yeah, no, it's hilarious. And the funnier thing is like I feel like I saw one of them say like these cards kind of like make me want to try Shaper, and I'm like, yes, one of us, one of us. Um,
I, I also suspect that they are able to edit audio.
I don't know. I don't know. They tell me it's uneditable, so we'll never find out. Um, but yeah,
That's yeah.
if Shaper gets one or two low cost programs that are like decent utility, I could start to see this card having some real payoff. I think slots are always a problem, especially with econ cards. But this is actually, like, the fact that this pays out more than daily casts makes me sort of interested in it.
Yeah, honestly, it's
Even if
just
it's a little
kind of
conditional.
yeah. It's just kind of fun that like, when you have non-generic econ, it's rewarding to figure out like what the right econ cards are for your deck, and this is like an interesting question in deck building. I really like it.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
it's really nice that we got. I guess we didn't get one in Anarch, but we got this card, and we got Carpe Diem, which we got to talk about on the same day, where we've got these like these econ cards that you have to stop and think about. You don't just like, you can't just go and immediately say, oh, the math on this is good, bad, so it goes in or it doesn't go in. It feels like a bit of a puzzle we get to solve in the first, as we build our decks. Um, that's I think a really nice little piece of design.
I agree.
All right, well, my lovely wife has come in and told me that dinner is ready. I should really wrap it up. So thank you once again so
Yeah.
much, Sanjay. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Sanjay is streaming on Wednesday. I will be back here again tomorrow. I hopefully talk about some more scoops. I'm assuming there'll be some out. Um, and depending on if Sanjay is the only scoops on Wednesday, I may take the day off. But if there are scoops, I will be here. I actually may have guests. Actually, you know what? I think I have guest lines up for Wednesday, so we will find something to talk about, scoops or no scoops, and then we'll do a bit of an early throw to Sanjay. Probably not actually a throw, but we'll tell
You have to
everyone to
throw
go
pretty
there.
far, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, thanks again so much, Sanjay, and thanks everyone for stopping by.
This was really fun. Thank you very much, Jeff.